The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Music's gone. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And too bad it's Monday.
Too bad it's Monday?
Yeah. TBIM. But here we are again, another week in dysfunctional land, paradise, bizarro world, whatever you want to call Fall River. But here we are again.
You know, it's just very interesting. Last night was a rip-roarious time in Fall River because Portugal won the EUFA. They won for the first time the World Soccer Champ. So everyone in Fall River was Portuguese last night.
Columbia Street I actually thought Fall River was in the United States, but that's my
according to some people in other media outlets, they said that welcome to Fall River, the 10th island of the Azores.
Well, I actually said that on TV. I think Anthony Bourdain, when he visited Columbia Street, said it's another island in the Azores.
Yeah, well, I guess they got to hold true to that. But you know, it's just interesting because for once in Fall River, there wasn't attacks, crimes, or anything else that we know of so far. But you know, you have to give them credit. They did well, and. You know, congratulations, everyone who's of Portuguese descent or who's Portuguese in Fall River. I'm sure you're excited. But I have to also move in. You know, I spoke yesterday in the Weekend Flush about Pokemon Go. It's an interesting app because if you want to have a good time, go someplace where people are doing it, like down at Bicentennial Park. And watch them chasing these mystical creatures. And you see them bang into each other, fall over their own feet. It's hilarious. It really is. But the flip side of that coin is that it's now being utilized by criminals. Imagine that. They're actually setting you up because they're using the app to find where everyone's going to collect these mystical creatures, and then they're robbing them. They're taking their cell phones, their wallets, everything else. So this app has only been out since Tuesday of last week. And already there's major traffic accidents because people are catching Pokemans in the middle of the highway. And their injury calls to the ER are going up because they're banging into walls, falling down stairs, falling off ladders. It's funny, but it's not funny. But you know,
it's tragic. It's it's a symptom of what's going on in this society, and you know, people now we have reality TV, which isn't actually reality. And now we have this that you're chasing around mythical figures. Why don't we start chasing around the mythical figure of a job, for Fall River, and bring people in that are not low income? And to get back to the soccer game, wouldn't it be wonderful? You know, because you know how I feel about hyphenated Americans. I agree with Teddy Roosevelt. So the fact is, wouldn't it be wonderful if everybody got that united over trying to move Fall River forward? This is one of the problems we have nationwide. As I said before, we've broken this society down into little subgroups. And we all know what the old adage is. United we stand, divided we fall. If we wouldn't stop categorizing people by their ethnic heritage or by the color of their skin or by their religion, and as Teddy Roosevelt said so long ago, stop being hyphenated Americans, whatever is in front of the hyphen, and be Americans and have loyalty to this country and to your community, like they did in the old days, it would be a far, far better place. That's the problem. One of the biggest problems we have in this country is that as far as I'm concerned, is there's a it's a completely different world today. Many years ago, when our grandfathers came to this country, they came from everywhere, Ireland, Portugal, Italy, you name it. It was a melting pot. But they came here with a reason. They came here to become Americans, to start a new life. They were proud to be Americans. Many of them became citizens, and that was the happiest day of their life. But this was a place where they came to establish a new life, and they had loyalty to this place. They felt they were happy to be Americans. They were proud to be Americans. Is that what the Mexicans come over the border for? They're proud to be Americans? No. The first thing they are is Mexicans. Mexican Americans. We want to keep that. Make us a subgroup. But they're going to come here. They're either going to collect welfare and run back, or they're going to work here and then take the money back to their families in Mexico. Even the other subgroups today. They don't come here anymore to be Americans. They come here to be what they were and take the money or take the welfare. We have them coming over here for one or two reasons: to take money, get jobs, put it all in a safe, and then retire and go back to the country of origin, or come here and collect welfare. That's the difference. You want to know about it in a simple? I'm making it pretty simplistic, but I'll tell you what. As far as I'm concerned, in my opinion, that's one of the major problems we have in this country today. You know, if that's it. That's a problem. People don't come here anymore to be Americans, to live a new life, to dream a new dream. They come here for either welfare or to get a job and send money back. All those Mexicans, it's clear, they would much rather be in Mexico. But they're here because this is where they can make money. This is where they can get a job. Be it a crappy job, but it's a job. They can't get a job in Mexico. You know, but then they'll take all the benefits. They'll demand college educations for their children who were born here and everything else. But that's for another show. So, you know, it irritates me because, you know something, my grandparents came here to become Americans. My grandfather on my father's side got the crappiest job there was to get when he got here. He couldn't get anything else. He drove around a wagon and picked up swill. And he did it every day of his life, so his kids could have a better life in the United States. And both his sons fought in the Second World War for this country. And I never heard my father refer to himself as anything but an American. And believe me, when I see what's going on with these people standing up with Mexican-American power and this power, it pisses me off. And that's just my opinion. You can have a differing opinion, but I'll tell you, as far as I'm concerned, that's what's wrong with America. Because I've seen immigrants, as Teddy Roosevelt said, come to this country and be the best Americans you ever saw. Because in his speech, that's what he said. Some of the best Americans I know are naturalized Americans. But the first criteria in being a good American is to love America, period. First and only America. But that's it for that rant, because that bothers me.
That's
one of the buttons that you push with me to get me irritated.
Yeah. Well, you know, let's get on to some of the other things. You know, Governor Baker vetoed spending on courts and childcare, and people are up in arms about it. And you know, I can understand this, but as the governor said, that a lot of these budgets are over budgeted. You know, that creates free cash. Remember that lovely term? That's what that is. That's your tax dollars being over budgeted.
Magic money.
Magic money, exactly. And, you know, so on Friday, the governor releases vetoes late in the afternoon, and they say that it's concerning because the executive director of Homes and for Families is worried about cuts to the housing voucher program. That's programs that help homeless, and with the increase in homelessness in Massachusetts. The problem is, last year they didn't even use all the money that was in the program. So with a huge budget shortfall projected on revenue, you have to say, well, we got to make cuts somewhere. So let's look at the budgets that are over budgeted, that have extra money. Because you know the old thing, if we don't spend it, we lose it? That's the problem. Well, you didn't spend it, so you lost it. But with that revenue shortfall, they're now saying that and it's kind of late, by the way, it'd be a last-ditch effort, that we may not have a tax-free holiday weekend. And again, that's because we don't have the revenue coming in.
Look, CJ, this again, I guess I'm in a bad mood. But
Some
again,
of our best shows are when you're in a bad mood.
this is government. This is government again at its best. And Governor Baker's cutting and good. This is what Libby Hayes, executive director of Homes for Families, said. She was worried about the cuts in housing voucher programs that has been instrumental in reducing the number of homeless families living in hotels and motels. Well, they could have come to Fall River. We got tons of housing. But that's number one. But number two is, why do we have people living in hotels and motels in this country? Why don't, this is, again, government waste. I saw something on Sunday, a show, that the United States has spent about between 400 and 600 million, the bills are still out, buying the Afghani Air Force, an entire Air Force, and the planes virtually never left the ground. They're all parked at the airport, and they're never going to fly because they can't fly in that weather because of the temperature and the sand. They were Italian planes. The United States spent over $500 million for an Air Force that never flew for another country. If we stopped wasting money and it with foreign aid and stuff like this, and because who got the kickback? Who got paid off? It's always the same.
Halliburton.
It's always the same thing. Today we couldn't get to the back lots in a state project. They're still working on the buildings. This is another Braga Bridge, another government, because it's the taxpayer money. They build hotels in Las Vegas in a year the size of cities. They're 10 blocks long, 15 blocks long, and they have shopping malls in them, and thousands of rooms, and casinos, and
16 restaurants.
Theaters, and 16 restaurants, and they build it in less than a year. But if it's a government project, look, they've been working on a Braga Bridge for what, 30 years?
30 years.
So it's like there are people today who were born in the last 30 years that have never seen the Braga Bridge without some repair work going on, and they will probably die. And it's still going to be worked on. So, this is the problem. The problem with government is, and we see it on the large scale on the state, but then we can bring it back down into the city because we got some things in the city to talk about. But it's all about wasting money on the wrong things. Why don't we've got Americans living in hotels. Why don't you instead of spending $500 million on planes that'll never fly for a country that fundamentally hates us and we're at war with elements in that country, why don't you spend it on veterans? Why don't you spend it on people who truly need a hand, a helping hand, not a handout? Why don't we do this? But no, because something? It's not their money, just like the tax dollars. City council doesn't care how many jobs the mayor makes. City council doesn't care how much money we spend and how much money we throw in a hole. We buy trucks, don't pay anything on them except the interest, and we sell them for dirt cheap. And who gets it? Who got screwed on that deal? You did. I did. Taxpayers did. And this is what happens all the time. We're worried about dealing with when's the next carnival going to come in so we can get a lobby of votes from a neighborhood association, and while the taxpayer goes down the toilet, and at the next time they set the tax factor, Rob Million will be up there telling them to keep the tax factor low on businesses because, well, let's dump it on a taxpayer that has no money. And he still hasn't figured out the fact that the reason that the communities that have a lot of businesses have businesses is because the people that live in those communities have money to spend in those businesses. So, this is, Monday morning blues.
Yeah.
I read this and it's Monday morning blues because the thing that bothers me the most is it's the same old, same old.
Yeah, it is. And Chip, we're looking also at the fact that on Tuesday we have a city council meeting. That's tomorrow. And you don't have that paperwork in front of you, by the way. And the mayor sent down to the city council changes in ordinances that will allow him, according to him, more negotiating ability to save money for the city. Yeah, that savings is going to cost 15.5% pay increase for a gentleman who's only been on the job for 6 months. That's Faust Fiore, who's not a city resident, which has until next June to establish residency in Fall River. And then what happens if he doesn't establish residency? Does the mayor come down and by, the impromptu turn around and say, oh no, he's forgiven, he doesn't have to? This is an ordinance. We don't follow ordinance in Fall River unless you are a resident. If you're an elected official, you don't. So he's putting in changes into the ordinances which dictate the salaries, and he's changing them to shall be X number of dollars to up to an annual dollar figure. So he's going to give Faust a raise to $52,000. Doesn't that sound familiar? Oh, wait, that was what was proposed in the budget. So now that that has been shot down, has been removed from the budget, the mayor's going to find some other department to steal that money from, and then get the city council to turn around and say, okay, yes, we're going to transfer that money for salaries. This is the problem that we have. City government lies to the people. The administration lies to the city council. And that's why our budgets don't work. When you create a budget, you should have that budget set so that you don't have to go through this. We need to transfer $250,000 out of pension receivables to snow removal. Oh, that's in this budget too. $937,000 has to be paid for snow removal from 2015. So we're going to take it from several other departments from last year's budget, which should be closed by now because it's after the first of the year, first of the fiscal year. But we're going to transfer last year's money around to make it happen. Wait, that money hasn't been certified as free cash yet. And when you're taking money out of the pension accounts, I want to know exactly where in the pension it's coming from. Because they're calling it as pension collectibles or receivables or something along that line. Yeah. What does that mean? Is that the contribution the employees made? Is that the receipts coming back from, say, the housing authority or somebody else? And if that's the case, then you're misrepresenting the pension allocations or appropriations in the budget, because you didn't put in there the fact that you were getting $1.2 million from the housing authority or $2.7 million from something else. So let's have a true transparent budget, Mr. Mayor. Put in the budget exactly where the money's coming from. Not these blanket figures and say, oh no, that's money we received back and that. No, that's bull. And for the city council to approve these appropriations now, fiscal year's over. Move on.
Well, CJ, there's a classic example. That's magic money you're talking about.
Exactly.
You can't mess with magic money. And see, that's the irony of the thing. I am going to get the exact, I'm going to see exactly where it came from. It's probably reimbursements from the people who don't work for the city of Fall River, who are in our pension system. But the fact is that that money is there every year, because every year they get what they owe, and it's divided up by those groups. Those groups who do not pay into the Fall River contributory retirement system, they don't pay the city of Fall River because they don't work for the city of Fall River. They work at a housing authority or CDA, something like that. They are responsible to reimburse the city for the retirement costs. And so that's money that's coming in every year. But rather than use that money and show it, they show it as a liability, and then at the end, they use it as a slush fund. Because why don't we, if we've got, if the pensions are coming in every year and you're getting 800,000, 900,000, why couldn't somebody actually use that money? Somebody come up with a brilliant idea, since it's retirement money, people that work, why don't we use it to hire a couple firefighters or police? No, we wouldn't do that. What we do is we take that money and we use it for pay raises other places. We stick it in every hole. And, there's one thing that's pretty clear. This city has increased the incoming money by, an astronomical amount. Just in healthcare alone, it was over $15 million in 5 fiscal years. Now you take all this other magic money that they get that we don't know, and then the tax increases and the fee increases and all these increases. This city has millions and millions of dollars more coming in. But guess what? They spend it all. They don't know what fiscal responsibility is.
Can you say forensic audit?
That's right. You know, they couldn't run a budget if their life depended on it, and the only reason that they're there is because they never run out of money. If they were running their house the way they run this city, they would have been living under a bridge. They would have been upset at Governor Baker for eliminating the homeless housing, because they would have been one of them that was in the homeless housing. Because you can't, all they do is spend money. All they do is spend money.
And remember, this is an individual who has not had any documentable success in business. So for him to tout himself out there to be the business guru, it just can't happen. But I want to see what happens at that city council meeting tomorrow, because this is piss poor.
But you know what's going to happen is they're going to approve it. They're going to say okay, because they're going to say, well, up to, that means you don't have to give them, you might give them less. So
right.
So Jays will go, okay, Faust, we got them. They fell for this bill of goods.
That's right.
So we're going to give you 51,000 instead of 52,000, and I'll say, see, I negotiated. I saved the city $1,000 or $2,000, but he's still going to end up with a pay raise.
Right.
And these people are confidential employees. They're hired because they're friends with the mayor and they're confidants of the mayor. You don't collectively bargain with these people. These people are their friends. They're here, and they negotiate their contract over a beer and a hamburger somewhere, or a steak and a glass of wine, saying, well, how much do you think we can rape the taxpayers of the city of Fall River to give you on this thing that on this job I just created for you?
The mayor did that right away, because remember, 25% of his salary for his life is as mayor, and they were called on not following ordinances during the budget. I believe it was City Councilor Ponte that called them on not following ordinances. But this is in government, in its infinite ability to screw everything up. They use this as a vehicle to manipulate the system so they can give their people more money. Exactly.
So it's like, but this is the problem.
More money.
That's right.
Well, how many city officials does it take to get a person a Fall Riverite a job? That's Mark Dion's question. And, he says 700. How many people does it take to get a Fall Riverite a job? Apparently several hundred. Well, it's true. Not only does it take 700, 800, 900 people to get one person in Fall River a job, we can't even guarantee he's going to get that job. And then to top it all off, when you, the company, need the help to find these people, what do? You rape the taxpayer again. You use city buildings, city services, city employees, city security to run these job fair events all over the city. You even use the state, because you came to BCC and did it too. Now, people say, oh, but they need to get the jobs. But hey, you know what? If they were in another community that wasn't doing it for them, guess what? Those job fairs would be held right up at Amazon. They'd be held right on the property. And not only do we do that, but we give a company a contract to handle our trash. And then we say, hey, by the way, you can store your trucks and your equipment right on city property at the DCM garage on Lewiston Street. And you don't have to pay us for it.
And we even provided some employees to help them pick up, I heard.
That's right.
Are we getting reimbursed for that?
No, we're not.
Taxpayer?
No.
Is the taxpayer, are we getting a deal? Are they giving, are we recouping some funds from the trash?
No, that was done because the city didn't want to rack up any overtime on the 30th of June to finish the trash collection for the 30th of June. So they let it roll over to the 1st, and then they took the remaining DCM workers and sent them out in the city trucks to collect the trash. Because the easy disposal trucks now have allegedly 2 bins.
Wait a minute, that's not working their contract anymore.
No, it's not.
They just broke a contract. The DCM workers that pick up trash are gone.
That's right.
So every the labor union representing those people should be ashamed of themselves. Because it should be in your contract that you do the work that you were hired to do. Bargaining unit work shall be done by bargaining unit members only. There's nobody left in the bargaining unit that picks up trash. Those jobs are gone.
That's right.
The city of Fall River was doing those jobs, and why aren't we being reimbursed for providing those? We got like day laborers.
That's right.
You know, you should have went down. You should have went down to
Home
Plymouth
Depot, picked
Avenue
up a bunch.
and Stafford Road and hired some day laborers.
Yeah.
But no, again, because who cares? The only people that can get a job in Fall River are political kiss asses.
And the best part about it is that money that was spent on July 1st by the city to collect trash is not going to be reflected into the budget. We're never going to see that. So that savings isn't going to be touched. Alleged savings, because I don't think there's going to be much of a savings at all.
Well, you got to remember one thing. You know, the fact is that let's go back to Amazon.
Yep.
When they said, you know, I remember when they said you can't mandate them to have jobs. Yes, you can.
Yeah,
because
you can.
Because Buddy Cianci did it all the time.
That's right.
One of the reasons that the Providence Renaissance occurred was one of the biggest things of Buddy Cianci, and forget about the other stuff, the corruptness, but I mean, one thing about Buddy Cianci, all the workers in the city reelected him a lot because every time Providence had a new project, he would ensure that Providence workers you would have Providence workers working on that project. He mandated it, and they did it. And you know something? Again, as you said, we just redefine, like giant sucker on our head, and it should be in neon lights because it's like, come to the city, and like Mark Monroe said, we give them everything for free because we're desperate.
That's right.
But we get nothing back. The taxpayers got to pick up the services. We don't get any jobs. And if we do get jobs, they're negligible. They're very few. And so what happens? And then these companies pack up and leave later on. And it's just
a joke. It's a joke.
It is. It's
a joke. And you know what? Every time you get that tax bill, taxpayers, remember, that is your ticket to be raped. Okay? You can take it, put it on your forehead. It says, rape me now, just walk down the street. Because this is sad. I have to give a shout out to Colin Dias, 16-year-old Bishop Conley student. He did something that the majority of the people in Fall River won't do. He took the bull by the horns, grew a set, and stood out in front of Government Center alone, demanding that we take back Fall River. Colin, you got a great job in political careers if you leave Fall River. And that's the sad part about it. And lastly, I want to talk about the Westall school repairs. During the budget hearings for the school committee and prior to that, earlier this year, the school committee were notified that even if they complete the reconstruction of the Westall school, they don't have the money to open it. So what did they do? They spent the money to refurbish the Westall school, and now they're hoping to get $2 million of that back for a school that they're not going to do.
They also hoped they were going to win the Dominion suit.
Yeah, and they also hoped that to win the Mega Millions, but that was somebody in Indiana. So this is what we work for in Fall River. We spend the money, and we hope that we might get it back, and we hope that maybe, if we're lucky, we'll get the school open. And the worst part about it was they put Melissa Panchley on the spot because her position is we need to open the school to cut down on the overcrowding of classrooms, but we know there's no money. Okay, so which side of the fence are you on, Melissa? Because obviously you're kind of duplicitous and you don't know which way to go.
Well, let's get the taxpayer to give us more money.
Exactly.
Let's see what fee or what we can do.
And finally, if you're a non-taxpayer in Fall River and have a business, don't worry about it. The mayor will make sure you get your permits. Because a local business in Fall River who was unlicensed and owes lots of money to the city made sure they got their licenses this year. It's amazing what happens in Fall River.
Well, stay angry, everybody, because we are.
Thanks for watching. Have a great day.
Shoveling manure against the tide.